Yeah, so we're to Footy and Friends. Brettles, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm refreshed, mate. I've been back up the country. I'm not sure whether you saw.
He did. He got some bloody the H2O and some
H2O.
O as well. Water and air. Oxygen?
Why
What's
water?
oxygen?
Why the water?
You don't drink water?
Oh, a little bit, yeah, but I got some love off the weekend from my dog, Boris.
Borry.
I went and saw the big fella.
Oh, how was he?
Deaf as a stump, blind as a bat. You whistle him, doesn't know. So that photo, I wrangled him. Oh,
Could he smell?
He knew that there was food there. When I had food, he knew it was there. But
He had the tongue out. He was pretty excited.
he was giving me a lick.
Percentage of the weekend, how often did you spend with Boris? If you went around to your, I assume you
Stay at mum and dad's.
stay at mum and dad's.
Yeah.
In the old room?
Go around
in the old
to
room,
your-
Brett?
Yeah.
In the old room?
No, they're in a different house when I grew up.
Do they- do they-
Posters that would have been on the wall. Crusty Demons would have been up there, Mick. Who else would have been up there?
What's his bed?
Duncan Callaway would have been up there saying, I'm coming for that number, Duncan.
His childhood bed. You know how some people have
Racing
the
car.
Formula One
Yeah,
racing
he had a
car.
motorbike.
Yeah,
He
motorbike.
would have slept like this in his motorbike, standing up, ready to go.
Anyway, no, seriously, Brett, how was it?
Sorry, Brett. Move on.
A real crispy one.
Yeah.
In the morning.
How was it?
It's good. Yeah. No, probably as a percentage, probably 0.12, I reckon, for the weekend with Boris.
Did the girls enjoy?
They had an absolute ball. Yeah.
that's
Oh,
awesome.
not the dog. No, they can't stand the dog. Ran away from him and because they're not used to it. The two youngest came up with me, so Miller spent more time with Boris than Charlotte.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We had one from the audience, and they were saying about Boris. I said, "Why has no one thought of this? Brett just needs to get 2 more dogs. So then he's got 3 dogs, 3 girls." You ever think about that?
No.
Okay, moving on. Hey, boys, before we get into it, really exciting bloody episode today. We have Dylan Alexander coming in draft. Guru. We're claiming that. That's what we call it. He's nodding. So let's just do that. That's what we are. I'm really excited today. We've been looking at his content. He's been doing a bit of work with us, and he's absolutely killing it on his YouTube channel. We'll get him to talk all about it in a minute. But a bit to get through before we invite him on. I've had an interesting weekend.
How are you, Mick? Good?
You're good. Don't worry
Back to
about
me. I've had an
back to
interesting
Dylan.
weekend. I've been fearing for my life. I've been copying hate mail and death threats almost from Adelaide supporters since the last episode.
It was very uncharacteristic of you to really
I didn't like it.
double, triple, and quadruple down on a club.
I sort of forgot that it was on a podcast, and then Mac made the clip, and I was like off my phone, got posted, and then I was like, I can't delete this now. The damage is done. I've picked out a couple of my favourite comments. Kane Corns got around us, which was good. Someone said, a first-round draft pick that played less than 50 games in their career. I reckon everyone thought the same about you, Dyl, and you did sweet diddly squat. So that was hurtful.
Because just verbatim, you used diddly squat.
I did. That was good. There was that ex-Spud football was giving another club shit. How ironic. The funny thing about this guy's username was Melbourne 5-Pete. He reckons Melbourne have won 5 in a row. So they've done.
They haven't?
No, they haven't. And then this one,
Have they done?
they've done diddly squat. I don't like. No, I don't want to make big calls anymore. I don't like it. You played less than 50 games and got delisted by 2 of the worst teams in the competition at the time. Another mediocre ex-player who thinks he's better than everyone. His DP is him and Tex. Oh, that was the guy that sent it to me. His DP is him and Taylor Walker.
Yeah.
Like, I hit an algorithm of just... I reckon they put it through Big Footy and their whole membership base was just coming at me. Anyway, so I had to go and just get back in the yard, but I heard you've been getting in the yard too.
Yeah, a bit of yard stuff. I saw your Sunday wholesome content, hedging. A bit of hedging. I'm
like
really
hedging?
interested with your greenery of your lawn. It's probably not content for the podcast because we might lose a few people, but the lawn looks good.
Spring.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
What
a
have you
good
been
time
doing?
for
Anything
lawn.
specific?
I actually have the boots that I put on and walk around and aerate the grass.
You do not. You do not.
I swear on my life.
No, you don't.
I swear to God. I aerate the grass.
With your boots.
Oh, wow.
No, you wear boots and you put
no.
these and you strap them on the bottom and you walk around and aerate the
Post a
grass.
photo of that.
I will. I will.
And
And then what?
See?
I'll tell you what I'm actually doing. I'll tell you what I'm actually doing in the next little bit. I've been in an algorithm on TikTok at the moment. I'm actually gonna. My front lawn's really good, but it's very bumpy. So I'm actually gonna go back and mow the shit out of it right back to its roots.
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna come aerate,
Boots.
get sand, and then get one of those leveling rakes and
Yeah.
start raking it out.
I
It takes
spent-
4 weeks to do.
I spent a good amount of time on YouTube last night looking up that exact... Because I think I have to go back to the well with the lawn I've got and strip it right back.
Well, what I was thinking is, why don't we come do mine next weekend?
Yeah.
You come to mine, we'll do the work. And then next year in spring, I'll come to yours and do it.
Yeah, you and I are talking about a bit of DIY stuff.
Yeah, Brett's not.
Brett in Malvern with his 3 houses.
Oh, yeah, he's got the
his 3 gardens.
Let's move on.
He's getting busy. Hey, let's welcome in our guest. Please welcome Dylan Alexander. Come on in, mate. Beautiful. You know, not everyone gets a clap.
You guys mind if I bring the iPad on here?
Bring it on.
Please do.
There's a bit of research.
Oh, mate, we're actually very well researched today. Dyl, how are you, mate? What's going on? How'd you get into this?
Throw that.
Throw it up.
You brought that up?
He likes coffee too.
Yeah.
How'd you get into the draft world? What are you so fascinated with the draft?
Yeah, I guess like I've always been a bit of a footy head. Like going back, played when I was growing up, not to the level of any of you guys, obviously, but
Brett.
South Burnie Twos down in the hometown. So played in a couple of premierships down there.
No, the Burnie Dockers, isn't it? What is South Burnie?
Yeah, South Burnie's like a level down again, and then I was in the seconds.
Makes sense. South.
Yeah, exactly. So I've always had that. I lived overseas for like going on like 10 years. I taught English over there. I was living in Russia. So did that for a while, came back here and I wanted a bit of a career change. So I sort of started doing a bit of media stuff, and then that sort of football, I kind of gravitated to football because it was sort of always a love.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Can we just go to the Russia thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Sure. What are you doing? Is there drafts over there? Or
a bit of footy in Russia, Australian footy. No, I just, kind of did in my 20s, did the gap year sort of thing. Lived in a few different countries and ended up there at some point. And
was it good?
Yeah, it was great. I was there for 7 years.
Wow.
Total.
Russia.
So
I sort of have a bit of weird interests outside of footy and friends into like organised crime and the oligarchs. Have you looked much into them? Did you ever hear about that when you were over there?
Hang out with them?
Yeah. I worked for a couple when I was teaching. Yeah, for their families, stuff like that. So
wow.
Yeah.
I'm completely confused.
Okay,
so what are the oligarchs?
You might be able to explain this better than me, but from my understanding, they're like the 10 richest sort of families in Russia. And what happened was when Russia went into like...
Can I just say, I didn't expect we'd be getting into this
today. But we just go with it because it's interesting. When Russia went into like, say they had a financial crisis, the government needed money to come back to its like best. So what they did was they gave all these like 10 wealthiest families the chances to buy the most important things. So like the oil, the... Vodka, whatever they were, those massive things. So then all these like oligarchs, they're called now because it's back to where it is. They're like the richest people in the world.
Right.
And they sort of own Russia. Is that essentially?
Yeah, essentially. Like in the 90s when everything collapsed, there were a certain few people that sort of capitalised, got their hands on all of the big industry. Yeah. And then they sort of still...
So it would make sense that you would have worked, because most people in Russia probably would work for portions of...
Yeah, in some sense. Just the fact that I was doing tutoring and stuff like that.
Oh, so you're tutoring their kids?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, my God. And last thing, I'll say one more thing on the oligarchs. I don't even want this to get back to Vladimir Putin. there was a guy there. It shows as well how crazy Russia is.
Has Vladimir Putin done diddly squat?
No, he's done let's not even go near there. There's a guy that was going... He sort of controls the oligarchs. There was a guy that was going against him, and all of a sudden he was the only one of them who's been thrown in jail for like life now for tax evasion. But it's just because he was disagreeing with...
it happens a bit over there.
Yeah, with Putin. And also there was another one who got like... He moved to London, his house got blown up or something.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I don't even know one Russian. I don't reckon. You're as close to Russia as I even get. Or Mark Jamar, the big Russian.
Yeah.
But other than that, I've got
interesting
no
background. Let's get into the draft.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Where to start?
Where to? Well, I don't know how we back that up. But so you got into the footy. What's happening this year? Let's go into 2024. How's it all looking?
Super draft.
Yeah, super draft.
Super draft. Yeah, I guess that's the narrative that gets thrown around. Like I find that a little bit difficult to quantify, like what a super draft and like stacking them up against each other. Like you had 23, you sort of had Harley as this like runaway player, and was that a weaker draft, or did he just make them look a little bit different? I think in 24 you've got two like defining characteristics with this draft, that it's pretty even. So say you were picking a player, you had picked 20 and I had picked 30, you get a fairly comparable player there, obviously with a little bit more quality on that end. The other thing is I think that clubs will target, particularly Richmond, who hold a lot of picks in that top end, they'll look to get players in that have sort of certain athletic qualities, I think, that kind of propel them against some of the other players, like more accumulator types that we'll get into when we go into the depths of it a bit more.
In terms of this, like simple terms, 23's draft, last year's to this year's draft. So a player, and it's so hard to marry all of this stuff up, but players in last year's draft between, say, 15 and 20, is the common belief that those players, if they were in this year's draft, would be, 35, 40 plus in this year's draft?
Yeah, that seems to be the chat. And I think that's what, I suppose, like what I meant off the top was that's hard to, like it's hard to go quality versus quality over 2 years, but you can, within like the same draft year at least, you can kind of say, you can line all the players up, and if you do that exercise of going like the top 60 players, you go, oh, the guy at 20, like I could feasibly pick the guy at 30 if there was a need. So it comes down to a lot of like what clubs want.
Yeah. So you could look at it at the end of the day, and some bloke that does get through to pick 45, he could have been picked 20, but just because he's fallen through or things have happened, it works out that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, if a team needs some really athletic, tall utility or something like that, he might be a bit of a climber and vice versa.
I suppose the let's get into a couple of talking points around the draft then before we get into your mock draft.
Yeah, will you do one of them? Top 30 or
Yeah, what did we say we're doing? I've just thrown you
I've
under the bus
got
there.
it like mocked to about the first round.
Yeah, cool.
It obviously, like, there's a lot of domino effects that can happen there.
Of course.
So I've got options based on what I think the clubs, and I think I can get you two guys to sort of help out with what clubs need maybe as well.
Okay.
And me.
You drive it.
I can pick their numbers if you want. I'll pick their numbers of their club that they're going to. The big one that I see at the moment, and Mick, he plays his cards close to his chest here, but the Tigers are trying to get up to take 1 and 2, as we understand, off North, that would be. So what would North get in return for that, do you think, at the moment, and what would that allow them to then do?
Yeah, I think it's something like, at the moment, it's looking like 6, which would give North Melbourne what they want, and then something like 18 and 20 on the other end. And that probably, on draft value index, that works out roughly even. I think that kind of works for both parties. North will get to take maybe another tall with that second pick. They'll get the first tall that they want at pick 6, and then Richmond can sort of control.
So you think North are just going for talls?
I think so.
Yeah. So who have you got there at pick 6 there you think that North would take if that's the way it eventuated?
Yeah, the one where all the chat's about, and this guy's sort of a bit of a mini bolter as well from the second half of the year, but Alex Tyree.
Gippsland Power.
What
are his fundamentals like?
Fundamental, yeah, very good. He's played.
Take the job.
Can he handball?
He's got clean hands.
All right, there we go.
Nice. Now we're talking.
193 centimetres, so he's
not a tall.
He's not a tall. And that's probably a theme in this draft with some of the talls.
Even Harry Armstrong's a bit the same, is he?
Harry Armstrong's the same. Luke Trainer's the same. Like 193, 194. So a lot of athleticism in Tyree, and he's this is a small thing, but December born, so he's kind of a bit younger than everyone else.
Nearly.
Will Dawson last year was
December.
Same at all. He was December
27.
I reckon like 3 days away from being in this year's draft.
I always think too with those players that are second half of the year or really late like that, they've had to. If you look at like relative age across any major sporting competition, it's always front ended. So as you go through the months of however the country or sport rations out the aging. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you have more AFL players born in January, February, March, and it just gets decreasingly less as you go down.
That's true.
Yeah. So
when were you born?
I was in March.
Yeah.
So why that happens?
Well, I got drafted when I was 25, so
doesn't count.
So December.
Yeah.
December 32nd. Yeah.
But essentially that's like the.
Is that young?
That's brilliant.
Sorry,
that's all right.
Yes.
Essentially, that's like a relative age bias. So like that can be. It's not just getting overlooked in your draft year. You go back to when you're 12, 13. You might have missed. You might have been underdeveloped, missed the team, quit footy. So it just
it's a really interesting point because it even goes back to like when Gold Coast and Giants, when players used to get picked up in those first 4 months. Remember the 17-year-olds? Like it was like Sam Blease, Jack Watts, all those guys. It was the last time I think it happened.
Was Toby Green one of those?
No, because
Pre-listed,
he was He was in the draft.
No, I was thinking about Jamie Elliott.
Jamie Elliott was he was older. He was picked up as a 19-year-old, I'm pretty sure. It was strange.
I've got that wrong then.
Yeah, it was a different. But before that, I think the last draft must have been around 2009, 2008, where they did the.
It was Jack Watts' draft, wasn't it? I think because I was drafted as a 17-year-old, but you had to be 18 before
April
30, was it?
But maybe even April 1. April 30. But yeah, there used to be a thing where you have like literally guys like Dan Hanbury were drafted as 17-year-olds. They were still in high school and flying up to play for Swans.
Yeah. But was your development through that, like when you were coming through as like a 14, 15, 16-year-old, was it still split into 12-month, like January to December?
Yeah.
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 So you still could have got filtered out.
Yeah, definitely. You were just playing, I think, even with the under-18s, and I don't know what it's like now, it's actually a good question. In the under-18s, bottom ages, I'm pretty sure the only players that were allowed to play in that back in the day were the Jan to April players. Now, if there's a 17-year-old playing...
In Brett's day, Brett played bottom age.
He was 16.
Yeah, so did Levi Ashcroft, right?
Yeah, he's won 3 flags.
3 flags in a row, yeah.
Well, sorry, 16 because the ages, none of them are actually 18 yet. So 17 and 16-year-olds.
So he played as a 15-year-old, and he's a December baby too, which is way late December. So he played as a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 17-year-old this year, and now he'll be arguably probably could be number 1 if he wasn't a father-son.
That's really interesting. Okay, let's get into the draft, and then we can sort of spiral off there.
So in your, I'm just sorry to double down on questions, but your mock one you're going to kind of go through. You're going to have Richmond having pick 1 and 2.
Yep.
So you've already done the trade.
I've done the trade.
Mick's finding out this for the first time. He's still looking for a car park.
Do you know who I actually can take this to for once? Clarko.
Yeah, Clarko. You'd enjoy it. It'd be good.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, so we're going.
Pick one.
So, Richmond. So, I think you've got to take that into consideration too, like the fact that Richmond will have pick 1 and pick 2 here, and what they're going to do with that from a balance point of view in their midfield. Yep. Now, I see Richmond's midfield as a bit of a blank canvas. You've got Taranto in there. You've got Hopper.
Prestia sort of on his last.
Geez, 2 weeks in a row he's scoring at Prestia.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Mate, well, his age is his age.
It's true.
Yeah,
it's true.
Like he's probably not going to play 20
you wouldn't
games,
think he'd play. No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Hopper's an interesting one, and then you've got like probably McAuliffe in there, who's got a little bit of speed. We're not really sure if he's up to it yet.
He was a second rounder last year, wasn't he?
Yeah. So I think you're trying to sort of build this midfield up with the first 2 picks. That kind of works with the draft. Now, what I think they'll do with pick 1, which is why North are going to also want to do this deal. I think if there's one midfielder in this draft that North would consider taking with pick 2, it'd be Sam Lawler. And that's because he's a bit of a bigger bodied mid. He's kind of something probably similar to LDU inside that North Melbourne's mix. If you wanted to compare him to a player, like people compare him to Dustin Martin, Christian Petrarca, 187. Good overhead. He's explosive. A game that's largely built on strength, but he's got speed to go with it. So he actually has that sort of power to...
He's a bull, isn't he?
He's a bull to get through. He loves a tackle and just gets involved in the game in different ways, but certainly one that's leaning more... I think if we talk about players that come in and make an immediate impact, he might be one that takes, a little bit longer.
Is that because he's been interrupted injury-wise that this year? He hasn't really...
It's a few things.
Needs a good pre-season probably.
Yeah, and he's been a heavy cricketer in his junior... Like, he's played a bit of footy, but maybe not something that he's concentrated on as much. So again, seen as a bit of a project. Yeah. He's had the injuries, like you said, Brett. And I look at those kind of players like a Lawler, similar to someone like a Jason Horne-Francis. Harley's probably a bit of an exception, but like they take a little bit longer to develop, those really big, explosive midfielders. Like if you go back, you look at, say, the 2021 draft, you had players that, if you went after the first year, who was playing the best footy, you're looking at Dacos, you're looking at Josh Rochelle probably, you're looking at Josh Ward, Ben Hobbs played the most footy in that first year.
Yeah.
All kind of smaller bodied, just accumulator type midfielders. Like Dacos, obviously, sort of an exception there with a bit.
The rest catch up.
And then the rest catch up. So then Jason Horne-Francis, and then your talls come into it. Mac Andrew, Sam Darcy. They're probably the 3 that would be getting the biggest contracts from that draft if you go 3 years ahead.
It's really interesting. I've always found that even when there's always exceptions to the rule, but the ones that come in and play sort of straight away, often the ones that do have to develop a little bit more, do their runs on the boards, end up having those longer lasting sort of careers and more. there's all players that have done it different ways, but if you find that across the board, it is a good way to sort of do it, have your time and develop.
Yeah, I'd probably see Gary Ablett Jr. as that good example of that,
a good example.
People would forget, his first year first year played a fair bit of VFL or...
All those boys did.
Yeah.
Jimmy,
Martel.
Stevie J, they won a flag down there together. And Geelong have done it, I reckon, really well over the whole journey. They don't rush these boys in. Even you look at like Graham Myers, where he played a heap of VFL footy. Tommy Atkins had to bide his time even to get onto a list.
Ollie Dempsey this year, his third year, finally comes in and
so they don't rush them, but they develop them to help them adjust and have an impact when they come in.
Even De Koning and Sullivan, like what they're doing this year, playing in the twos. Like
Connor played one game. That was
two players that would probably start any other team. They just put them in. Where you got those guys still running around.
And if you think about it from a mental point of view, you can sort of build a little bit of resilience, and you don't get kind of smashed in your first games, like coming in and
The challenge is if you just get used to it and you just stay there forever. It sometimes happens.
Yeah,
I've heard. I've heard it just happens. You just stay there. I guess that's okay. So we got Lawler pick one.
Yeah, Lawler pick one.
I like him.
So that means at 2.
Do you bid?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I don't think Richmond are going to bid because I reckon when they did that pick swap with Brisbane, there was the old...
handshake.
The handshake.
Got you.
Agree?
Oh, for Ashcroft, we're talking here?
No, so they get a heap of picks out the back to get the points.
Yeah.
Just break that down for me and everyone else.
All right, so
mainly you.
Yeah.
Richmond and Brisbane did a deal in the trade period where Richmond sent a heap of the back end picks.
Yeah.
So Brisbane got points to match on Ashcroft and Marshall because they didn't have many points going into this draft. Brisbane. So I reckon in that deal, which was I suppose favourable for both teams, needed to do it, but it was favourable for Richmond getting picked 20 compared to I don't know what it was in the end, 50, 40, something like that for points. So there might have been a shake of the hand.
We won't bid on Ashcroft.
We'll give you 20, but we won't bid early, so it eats up more of their points or send them into deficit. So.
Got you.
I have no idea if that's what's happened, but that often happens.
Speculation's good.
So you've got Lawler at 1. If North hold if North hold 2, who are North taken?
If they keep it?
Yeah.
And can I just ask why would they, like, what is the reason they wouldn't not, like, let me try and speak here. Why would they not keep pick 2?
Because the player that they want isn't worth pick 2.
Okay.
So it's a reach.
Got you.
And then they can make they can take 2 players, get a little bit of a better draft hand for what they're trying to do because
they need tools. Like Logan McDonald years ago with Will Phillips.
Will Phillips,
Yeah, exactly. And they've, if you look at that North midfield for the future, it doesn't really need any more pieces. You've got LDU, McKercher, Wardlaw have all got speed and power.
Sheasel's a pretty handy player.
Yeah, footy IQ player, Sheasel. So there's a lot of pieces in there. And then you've got players like Phillips. We'll see how he goes. But
Yep. Cool. So pick 2, who's going there?
Pick 2. So
we've done the deal. Pick 2 is going to be Richmond.
It's going to be Richmond. And because they've taken Lawler, who's that powerful, speedy, explosive mid, they take an accumulator, a footy IQ type in Jagger Smith.
I like him. I like him.
Why do you like him?
I think I've seen a video of him like maybe a year ago or 2 years ago. Because is he a Scotch boy?
Yep.
You tell us you like him.
Is he a Scotch boy?
Yes, from
he is. I'm pretty sure he is. Played Richmond VFL.
He's had the year off this year because he finished last year.
Did he play in the Richmond VFL this year as well? Yep. Just fucking like him. I think he's a good player. He's very slight, skinny sort of guy, but just accumulates, uses the ball well. He has got a bit of swagger about him.
The
way that he dodges bodies at clearances,
Swagger Jagger.
Yeah. It reminds me a bit of a Zach Butters. I wouldn't say as he's a hard one to compare to in terms of braveness. But he's pretty good.
He looks fast and agile. Like he didn't test particularly well at the draft combine in those areas, and he's not like you said, he's not explosive. Doesn't use his body. But as far as reading the ball off hands, like at a ruck contest, if you balled the ball up 100 times, he'll get it more than anyone else. Like he'll just find the ball and he'll evade the tackles and he'll create and he'll set up. He's a handballer, like he's more than 50% handball to kick ratio, if you look at it that way. The reason that I put him to Richmond here, and I think he works with Sam Lawler, is because if you're building that midfield out, you've got different pieces. I think if you're a team that had 1 pick, it'd be a little bit underwhelming to take Jagger, just because he's not that sort of meters gained, like fast, powerful, game-breaking player.
But he's going to play 200 and be a bloody good mid.
100%. And he's the safe pair of hands. If you're looking, he's averaged 35 in the Coates League, 30 at Vic Metro.
I've known about this kid since 2020, I reckon. Just knowing that he was on his way through and been tracking him and knowing what he's going to be able to do. I mean, we've watched him 16s, as a bottom ager last year into the top age this year. He's got a high footy IQ, understands the game, knows where to go to get on the end of it. As did Will Ashcroft, as did Nick Dacos. When you're watching those boys, it's like not quite as damaging on the game probably as those two boys, but as we've said here, I think that they're 200 game player, and you'll be a very solid pick.
Yeah, 100%.
Would you like that? Do you agree with the pick 1 and 2?
If you were Richmond,
would you take those two
overall?
first?
Because I think Levi's probably got the most runs on the board to be pick 1 with what he's been able to do. But then I would say that Jagger's next in terms of what he's been able to do. But if you're looking for X factor, you're probably going with Lawler. Mate, Fino Sullivan, if he had a full year of just being able to play, he's got some stuff that's but he's been injured, so who knows?
And Finn's on rankings, Finn's my number 1. So I rate him really highly as well. And we talk about separating those guys. Like we talked about the IQ of Ashcroft and Jagger. You've kind of got Lawler and Fino Sullivan who just have that a little bit more X factor, less touches of the ball, but so much impact when they get the football. And you actually feel it. I was there at Fino Sullivan's VFL game. He only had 12 touches, but he kicked 2. And every time he touched the ball, you got that electricity.
Sounds like some of my stats. 12 and 2 and electric.
Batura.
Difference is I was 27 and playing Neefle. That's exciting. It's such a tough one for the Tigers, right? Taking pick 1 and 2. Just say that does come to fruition. And then you look at the last time a team had 2 picks in the top 3 was the Demons, and you get Petrarca and Oliver. Petrarca and Brayshaw, was it?
No.
Petrarca and Brayshaw. Yeah, it was.
Petrarca was pick 2.
Yeah, and Brayshaw 3, and then McCartan 1.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought Petrarca was after that, but
no, pick 1, 2, and 3.
It's funny that you mentioned Melbourne because I did a bit of an exercise when I was doing some of this stuff, and I went back to, I wanted to see those expansion clubs when they had this sort of a haul, like what Richmond have this year. And I actually went back to 08, 09 when Melbourne were that team before the expansion teams came in.
I can tell you who they were too. Is this like the Gisberts, Luke Tapscott?
Yeah, so
Lucas Cook.
The haul that they had, it's not as much as what Richmond have got.
Trengove.
You had 08, they had 1, 17 and 19. Yep. 17 was a priority. And they went Watts, Blease, Strauss.
Okay.
And then 09 was 1, 2, 11, 18 and 34. And only one of those players across those 2 years played in a premiership.
And that was pick 34.
That was pick 34. Who was that?
Maxie Gorn.
Oh, yeah.
He's best ruckman of all time.
Can you read out the names
after
of that
3 or
one?
4 years in that draft, people were looking at Max Gorn as a guy that was going to be out of there smoking darts down at the Swan.
Yeah. And ironically, like you said, Dustin Martin was the pick 3.
Yeah.
It turned out to be the 3-time premiership player. The names, Tom Scully, Jack Trengove, Jordan Gisberts, Tapscott, Gorn.
Luke Bumscott. That's what we nicknamed him because that's all he used to do is run around and try and bump you off the footy all day.
He was so strong.
He was
so wide. Tapscott. He was wider than he was tall. I remember
Bumscott.
Yeah, he was a big boy.
I don't even remember him.
Yeah,
he's curly-headed, thick set.
It just shows how important drafts are. Richmond will look back on this period for years to come and be like, what set them up for their next?
Not necessarily, because we had a very similar draft haul back in my draft. We had 5 in 20.
Adam Patterson?
Did you have that many?
Yeah, we had
04?
Yeah, 04 draft, 5 picks inside 20, and it doesn't set you up guaranteed because all of those boys ended up at other clubs.
Yeah,
every one of us.
If it does set you up, I suppose is the
you got to get them right.
Melbourne's the same though, right? Most of those guys left.
Yep.
Yeah. And this is where it actually comes over to our man here because the development side of things is actually, if not more important / as important as getting the draft right. First, you got to get the guys through the door. Secondly, you got to actually put them into a position where they can get their fundamentals right and develop and go from there. Isn't that right?
Correct. Yeah. No, absolutely. I think,
and that's what they said about Melbourne all those years ago. Was those players, in fairness to them, were very talented players, but did they have the right thing around them to actually succeed and make them go well?
Also, to Brett's point earlier, was it'll be interesting to watch. Largely Richmond, who have got all these players coming in, right, and how many of them straight away will jump in and play and will they have of those first rounders?
How do you manage that?
Yeah.
The expectations.
Whereas, again, the balance between having the opportunities for these guys to play some VFL football or state league football to build their careers it is largely beneficial to a lot of players. Some will just come in and be ready to go, but
it's a good question. But some have to, right? They don't have many, there's that many gone that some are going to have to play 25 games, 20, 23 games.
But it's the same at the Giants over the journey. Like, you look at, everyone's like, oh, the Giants, they all leave. It's like, but you bring in high-end picks all the time. They're not always going to go straight in as that high-end midfielder and take out Josh Kelly, Stephen Canelio and whatever else. You're going to have to spend some time being a defensive half forward. Yeah. Oh, this is shit. I don't want to do that. All right, well, I'm leaving then. So then, we get another young kid in.
But like you said, if your development's good, those players are still going to have currency, right?
Yeah.
On the open. So if you can get rid of them and get something for them. And I guess that's probably what Melbourne did and what Richmond did.
Yeah.
On some level, if they got that back into draft picks and reinvested it, then that's your premiership team.
Love it. So pick 3, Fino Sullivan, Carlton?
Yes. Yep. Which, I mean, I know that sounds pretty easy to say, and everyone's saying that Carlton are chasing that pick because it's Sam Walsh's cousin, but I think he does. I did a video on this a week or so ago on Carlton's midfield, and just the fact that you got Sam Walsh, you got Patrick Cripps, who are amazing ball winners, but they don't really have, compared to other top teams in the competition, they don't have that ball mover out of the midfield. Someone with, again, explosive pace, that penetrating kick inside 50 to get it in fast and to be able to score. So Fino Sullivan ticks that box, like all the attributes that he has. I think he ran a 20-metre sprint under 3 seconds, under 6:30 for a 2K time trial. So he's sort of that, like, verging on like a hybrid sort of an athlete.
Got the boxes ticked.
Yeah, a lot of boxes ticked. I guess the only issue with Fino Sullivan and why potentially Richmond wouldn't take him is the fact that he hasn't really had a proper top-age season, like injuries, broken. And actually, I might throw that one to you guys. Because I get a lot of questions about that, about Fino Sullivan. Is it a risk because of his injuries? But he's really just had stuff to do with his hands. And he had a hip complaint as well. So I don't know if that's a long-term issue you'd worry about.
Well, I mean, the contact injuries, obviously, to his hand and whatever else, you can't do much about that. But the hip stuff would, that's probably manageable if you look after it really well. His bottom age stuff is enough to say to me. That's why I rate him so highly, because I've watched him from the 16s and as a bottom ager to say, well, he's got something special. But that's probably why he's not the pick one, is because of this year and what he hasn't been able to do. He's done some special stuff, but it wasn't like that. Did you go to that Sandringham-Oakley game down at Trevor Barker? Were you down there watching that? And that was a real shoot. Finn had only just come back, but he kicked 3 goals, 2 and had like 20. Jagger Smith was just going bananas, and Oakley, they were near the bottom of the ladder all year because they had all these school kids, knocked off Sandringham, who ended up being the eventual winners. But that was what we were hoping for in the finals, in terms of best sides. But Finn that day showed, you know what, there's something special here.
Yeah, and that's a typical game for him, I reckon, like 20 disposals, 3 goals, compared to a Jagger, you're probably 35.
And maybe one.
Maybe one, yeah. Not a lot of goal scoring, I wouldn't.
May I ask why Fino Sullivan played for Oakley?
So he come down to Xavier to go to school. He's a Croydon boy down near Warrnambool.
Yeah, so that's GWV,
yeah? Yeah. But then he came down to school here, and because he can't travel back...
He's boarding
at Xavier. So therefore he gets aligned with... Yeah. There's a couple of others did that. Jasper Alga's a kid from Caulfield Grammar.
Can he play for... I know he can't train. He
played
GWV, but he's got.
I know what you're saying. As a country boy, I'm not really. I'm not okay with that either. If I could have travelled to the Ballarat Rebels every week, I would have. Albeit,
it does no doubt that some of the regions get their noses out of joint because they're losing a great player.
Put him on the bus.
As guys that played in that, TAC Cup probably was back then for you guys. Is there a lot of like tribal affiliation to those teams that you want to go back and play for them, or is it?
In all seriousness, if you're boarding in Melbourne, you probably wouldn't want to be driving back every weekend. But I don't know. Everyone's a bit proud of where they're from.
Yeah. Ollie Warburton did it this year. Caulfield Grammar kid, and then went back and played for the Bushies.
See, I reckon that as a draft, I'm not sure if that was his decision or the rules around it, but that's a little tick for me. He
trained the pre-season at Sandringham.
That's what I mean. But if you're a recruiter and you're going, geez, he's travelling back to go play with you. I like that.
Yeah.
A bit of character about that. Just on the injury stuff, I always find this stuff fascinating this time of year around injuries. There's always something there. But I spoke to Dyson Heppel recently on the podcast and spoke about a story of how he was going into his underage into that draft. His hips were a bit sort of mangled, and there was all these things around like Essendon was sending out these scans to all the clubs of like the hips and to make it slide down to pick 8.
Were they his hips?
I think they were 70-year-old grandmas hips with arthritis that they were just sort of sending around. But there's just so much of this. You look at Joel Selwood as well. What happened with getting to Geelong? They said he'd never be able to play with his knee. Yep. It's just hard to believe this.
Well, he
stuff.
was a bit similar to Fino Sullivan, really. In his draft year, Joel hardly played.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I do. I remember the knee stuff with Selwood. Slid to 7, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one, and like I look at these like two types of athletes. Like you look at Levi and Jagger, they just look like the kind of players that just never get injured. Whereas those guys that are a bit more elastic, like a Fino Sullivan, like a Sam Lawler, he's done the big hamstring. I think he like tore it off the bone.
Ooh. Also got hypothermia playing down in Tassie. Yeah,
didn't hear about that.
Yeah, I think he hurt his hammy, and then he's tried to keep going through it. Got that cold. It was a miserable day, mind you.
Yeah, so I don't know how much that comes into clubs thinking too, as far as risk with like that type of athlete.
Oh well, look at George Wardlaw. I think he'd hardly done any prehab, but then you get him into an AFL system and
they get it right.
Yeah, you sort of. Yeah.
Pick 4. Who's got the pick at the moment?
Pick 4 is Adelaide, which again...
And we love Adelaide here, guys. So best of luck
is
to
anyone
whoever
bidding
that
on
is.
Levi? Where's Levi fit into this?
Carlton bid.
Carlton bid on Levi.
That's
so
what I got.
Levi's pick 3.
We
Finn's pick 4.
hate the Lions.
Yeah. Do we? What?
Shift the attention.
We love the Lions.
Can we have a conversation quickly about the bidding and why clubs would or wouldn't bid? Because this frustrates me a little bit as just a person looking in.
Please do.
Just like we talked about the handshake thing, and clubs sort of wanting to. The same thing gets said about the player agent stuff as well, right? As far as like trying to look after people. What do you guys think about that?
I think, and it's this isn't really my area, that the draft stuff, and I don't fully understand the points and the bidding system. But simplistically, I think if you think that player is your pick at that pick coming up, so Carlton pick 3, we think Levi Ashcroft is the best player here, we want him. I think it's as simple as you bid. And Richmond, if they don't think he's 1 or 2, don't bid.
Yeah, I agree. And I think in this year's draft, this would be the perfect opportunity for a team to just go at 1.
But then does it take the shine off? Yeah. Takes the shine off Lawler, for example.
I don't think you can give up pick 1 to give that to Brisbane.
And then also he gets a sign-on bonus too. There's an extra 20 grand or something.
I think it's 10,
10. I think you can I ask a question then? Say they bid on him at 1 versus bidding on him at 4. Is there anything different that like takes place in behind, or it just doesn't matter?
Yeah. So
needs up more points.
The point. So Brisbane have.
So you could actually cook them by just doing pick 1 and say that you're going to.
Well, you got to make them accountable.
And
they're ready to go for that too. Yeah. If that was the case.
This is the conversation I'm talking about. So you've got clubs who are all fighting against each other, looking for small gains, and then it gets to the draft, and you sort of have a recruiting team, and they're all sort of friends, and there's seems like a lot of self-interest from an outsider's perspective anyway. So you'd think with someone like Levi Ashcroft, you just bid at 1, make them pay the 3,000 points, I think it is, and that would make them have to, because there's already a 20% discount on father-sons. So that'll be less than 3,000 anyway, whatever the bid is, or like exponentially going down. So yeah, I would have thought teams would just want to make them pay.
It's probably for the next one, Marshall trying to get him as bid on him as early as possible, because people, he could slide, from what I'm understanding, to like 20 or something like that if people don't get him. Next pick. Yeah,
exactly. And Brisbane will hit a threshold where they won't have points, and then they'd have to go into deficit.
So next year
for the next draft, which can make you slide back. And then when academies and things come in, you can end up like rolling back. I think it happened to Freo a few years ago, where they ended up dropping like 6 or 7 picks from going into points deficit.
Wow. So you can really cook them.
Yeah.
But from what when I'm speaking to recruiters, they're telling me that they have their list and they've ranked them. And if that comes up and Sam Marshall is there at that pick, they'll bid.
Yeah.
But otherwise, if not, because if you get caught left holding the bag because you just want, let's just make him accountable, and you didn't really want him, but it's like bugger the Lions.
Yeah.
Well, then you end up with a player that you didn't really want.
Yeah. But I go back to Dacos's draft. Like, how did he get? How was it until 4 Like, he was clearly the best player in that draft.
Well, they obviously wanted to make the players ahead of him feel like you're the player that we want, you know?
Coming to the club.
It's a bit like Adelaide bidding on Jamara at pick 1 and not just saying, you know what, Riley, bang, you're our man.
Yeah.
Because we know we're not going to get Jamara because he's going to be NGA and he's going to go straight to the Bulldogs. But now Jamara's a pick 1. Let's take Riley pick 2. Yeah, we didn't really. Your club, Adelaide. We didn't really want to back him in at pick 1.
That was a great call by them that they did. Pick 4 Adelaide.
Pick 4 Adelaide. So
Sid Draper?
Yeah, they're going to take Sid Draper. South Australian. Makes sense. No go-home factor.
Yeah.
And he does give their midfield something that they probably need. Like, they're running, Dawson, Saligo, and Crouch.
They've
got Peatling in there as well. So they're going to want sort of that ball-in-hand guy, someone with that like explosive agility like Draper has.
He's got the socks up too, doesn't he? Where's the socks
Yeah,
up?
a bit old school. He's got that sort of like weird, like footy-specific build, you know, with like the sort of short legs.
Horn Francis type.
Yeah, the long torso type thing. I don't think he's got as many weapons as Horn Francis as far as overhead. He's a little bit shorter, a little bit more low centre of gravity, but he gives you a lot of drive in the midfield, for sure.
Who's got 5?
Melbourne got 5 and 9.
5 and 9, yeah. So this is where I want to
draft for them. They need.
It's a great draft. It's a great draft, particularly in a super draft.
Yeah.
Even draft. I want to sort of introduce 3 bigger-bodied midfielders here that I think could go in this sort of range. So you've got kind of 3 ends of a continuum here with Harvey Langford, Josh Smiley, and Bo Allen.
Mm-hmm.
Smiley probably the most high pedigree of those 3 players.
He's the name I've heard the most of this whole thing, I reckon.
Yeah, because he was really in like the number 1 contention pre-national championships. Okay. And then he was a little bit underwhelming. Like, it just didn't find he played centre bounce midfield. It just didn't find the footy as much. And for a guy that's pushing like 195, 196, I think he is around that now, as a mid, probably just didn't impose himself. And when he went forward, he doesn't have that much of an impact aerially for someone that tall. So I'll start with Langford. Langford's I would say the highest of those 3 bigger bodied mids. He's the highest like footy IQ guy. Like, finds the football. He uses his strength really well. He uses his assets really well.
Runs well.
Runs well, as in from a endurance point of view. Runs well. And he creates a lot. And he's got a beautiful left foot kick, similar to like a Jordan Dawson. So the size and everything kind of matches up there. But he's really slow. He's like 3.25 in the 20-metre sprint. And
nothing wrong with that, Mick, is it? Like, being slow as a midfielder.
2.92, so...
Did you?
Yeah.
Big
Did you really?
Yeah, had a tailwind inside MSAC.
Did you run at 2.92?
I did. Top 5%.
I didn't realise you were that quick.
No, I'm not. But, like,
I don't believe
everyone, like, you know when people tell you can't do something?
Yeah.
And you do it?
Yeah.
That has blown me away.
Yeah, 2.92. Actually, I think it was 2.89.
Well, I ran a 2.89 too.
Yeah.
And I would love to race you now.
I ran something good, but Brett won't believe it. I can't remember. It was something very good.
But it was like 20 metres, bang. What you're saying, so he's slow testing, but does he...
He plays slow.
He plays slow.
He plays slow.
But I don't mind people that play slow, though. And as long as you're a good decision maker, that's what you need to be.
He's a good decision maker. Like, he's, as I said, footy IQ. And I think players that are slow tend to be
better decision makers.
I've
thought this the whole time. Besides Brett, he does it very well.
He's
able
fast and
to do
decision-making guy.
I think that if you have pace,
fast, no decision-making.
Yes.
Slow decision-making.
That's what I mean. When you're quick, you rely on it, and you end up fucking it up a lot of the time. Unless you're really good at sort of working it out. Versus you're slow, you can't break away. You've got to make the right decision.
And I think the best of both worlds is you're athletic and a good decision maker. But often it does work like that. So that's Langford. He's great overhead when he goes forward. Not because he's a good like jumper. He's not that good.
He reads it well.
He just reads it well and he's strong. So like he stands up in those contests. The middle player in that is Josh Smiley, who I think is second in the footy IQ, like clean hands, all of those things. He's good at, again, similar to like a Tom Green at stoppages where he uses his frame, like gets the arms free. Again, good at creating for players in that stoppage area. And
is he purely just an inside mid though? Because I saw he was an All-Australian centre half back in the 16s.
Yeah. So
he's
a good kick. I would compare him. You guys remember like David Mundy? He's.
I
played with Barra back in as a bottom agent.
Bottom.
Yeah.
Like I reckon he kicks the footy a bit
fullback.
like Mundy.
Yeah.
So he can roll off half back. He's not. That's what I'm saying though. Like he's not much of a marker. Like he's not an overhead player for being that big. Smiley, this we're talking about. So whether he's playing behind the ball, he's like a distributor as a halfback. I'm not saying he can't compete in the air, like if he plays in defence or forward, but he's not clunking marks like Harvey Langford or Sam Lawler.
Yeah,
when he does that. So
my question there though, if they're going for a big body, well they've got Petrarca and Oliver already inside. Viney's going to still take a spot
for a while.
Rivers.
Well, no, Trent Rivers isn't playing in the midfield.
No,
that's right.
Brad Green's written him off.
I've got to jump in there.
He's going straight to half-back.
Yeah.
Sorry,
straight
mate.
back there.
Well, so where does he fit? So he just bides his time down at Casey then?
Well, I think he probably fits the player that
they need.
Well, I was going to say fits the type of player that maybe does take a little bit of time to find his feet. But I sort of think the stuff that's going on with Oliver, I think that's a bit of a flag.
Maybe they know that one's not going to be there.
Yeah, potentially.
Who knows?
Yeah, if that's what they want.
The final guy on that, when I put those big body mids against each other, 190, so a bit smaller than Smiley, more like Langford height, is Bo Allen, Western Australian.
Yeah.
I think he's the least likely here because you'd be taking someone out of WA. You've got that extra go-home factor. But he's if you're talking about the athletic package, he's got that like explosive, ran a 2.9, 20 metre, can run a 2K in sub 6:30. So he's got that high-end endurance, athleticism, aerial game.
Is this for 5 and 9?
Yeah, so who are you picking? Who are you picking?
Yeah.
So
Give
I'm
us your 5.
Okay, yeah. So I'll get taking too long here.
Yeah, just get the fuck into it.
Josh Smiley at 5 for the Ds.
Yep.
And then at 9, I think they'll take a key defender like a Stephen May replacement, Luke Traynor.
Ooh, don't mind it. I'm going to give you, just to before we finish up the top 10, we've got the 2019, so 5 years post-draft, that I'll liken to who they are, who those picks are now, that clubs can get their head around. So if you're taking pick 1 and 2, which the last time that was actually done was Gold Coast, so if Tigers have that this year,
yep.
You're getting a Matt Real and a Noah Anderson. You're pretty happy with that?
Yeah.
You'd be pretty bloody happy with that.
If
Richmond,
Noah Anderson gets into the 4, I'd be happy with that.
True. Pick 3 is Carlton. Luke Jackson was taken, so he's obviously left the Ds, but pretty bloody good player.
Was Jackson drafted as a key forward or a ruck?
Forward, wasn't he?
Don't know.
No, actually, because they were. It was a ruck because they were talking about having gone.
Yeah.
But they turned into a premiership team.
Yeah. Pick 4 for Adelaide. Lockie Ash from the Giants. So he was pick 4. He's gone to the Giants. Pick 5 for Melbourne. It's Dylan Stevens. He's from Adelaide. Probably hasn't come on just as strong yet. Still plenty of time to get that working. And then pick 9. We'll go 5 and 9 just to show the Ds what they could get. He's a Liam Henry Fremantle at the moment. So probably missed those 2, maybe, at the moment.
Make a call. Did they miss it or not?
Yeah,
so on Melbourne, you mentioned not the need for the big body mid. Who would you think that they do need?
A key forward, I would have thought, at some stage. But I don't know where the key forward is in this draft. And that's, there's some undersized guys at 193, but I don't know. Yeah. If you're just going pure talent, then it's probably some of those guys that you've named. I can't put my finger on what they... I'm only going off what they've got now, and they'll do their best to try and turn around Oliver and Petrarca and make it all work and everything will be hunky-dory, but...
I think it'd be a massive reach to take a key forward at pick 5.
100%.
So then...
There's not Aaron Cadman who was going to be that, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't see Armstrong or Shanahan, who are the 2 most highly touted key forwards, as in that calibre, just with the all-roundness of their game. Like even Harry Armstrong has some similar traits to Cadman, but he plays a lot deeper. Like he doesn't get up the ground.
Doesn't move as much.
Doesn't move as much. And there is the kind of the looming shadow of the 2025 draft, which does have a lot more key tools in it. So I assume clubs are going to have their eye on that as well.
Big boys next. This draft wasn't eaten enough in the year behind. Whereas they got
to work on the broccoli.
Pick 6.
So that'll be North. Doing the swap with Richmond.
This is exciting.
Feeling about it.
Let's get a good one.
Again, just prefacing, this isn't my area, but in draft and bringing players in, like in the top 10 to 15 players, I subscribe to the feeling of just get the best player available to that pick in. So my school of thought would be at pick 6, whoever the best available is, and I'll go to your expert opinion for that, bring them in.
Interesting.
And you're thinking that they're going to go specifically for a position?
I do, because I think if you're trading, if you're going to do that, just keep pick 2 then.
Yeah.
As opposed to...
That's why I think they will do that.
Yeah.
Keep pick 2.
Well, that's a conversation for sure. I sort of think that they've just... Unless they think they can bring them in, and then they might want to move some of those guys that are already like depth players in that midfield on. But I feel like they've got a fairly solid base of quality midfielders in there. So me mocking the draft out, I think they go for Alex Tyrou, who is a player that they've been linked to for as much as half the season now. So
it's a really interesting one. We find ourselves with North, because like you're right, in their position they should be just taking the best available. But they have a very good midfield already. So it's like, do you add another Jagger Smith into that? Or do you try and get
the Giants did that last year.
With Cadman.
No, not Cadman.
Not needing...
No, last year they picked up Phoenix Gothard at like pick 13.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, we're not sure where they're going to go. But they said, we want small forwards. So we'll get one of the best small forwards that we think in this game. Phoenix Gothard, pick 13 or 14.
And they've done that a little bit. Like
Lecalier was the same, like pick 17 or something.
Yeah, and even Darcy Jones, I think...
Yeah.
The year that they picked him up, like just going for that type, like small forward that's a bit of a utility too, like can go into the midfield.
But it fits what their game plan. Then they pick for needs, not for just pure talent.
Yeah, it's like a whole club thing. So that's my take on the North Melbourne situation. Like there's definitely an argument that you bring in the best available, you take the highest pick that you can get. But I do think with teams, even with contract situations and like balancing your list, like where do you end with just bringing in high-end draft pick, which are usually midfielders. Like they tend to be. There's more mids than any other position.
So the pro of very simplistically, the pro of splitting pick 2 is that you might get, say you've said 6 and another 18. 1 or 2. Like
and the reason that with 18 that I think that works in this case is because the draft is probably pretty even. So you're still getting a fairly high quality player.
Yeah. It does seem like it's not a lot though. 2 for 6 and 18.
On the draft value index, if you subscribe to that, which is the points given to each pick, it's about even.
All right, so just off this, just my little game here. This is the Dylan Buckley draft index. You either take Jack Lukosius in the 2018 draft or Noah Anderson in the 2019, and then you get Fisher.
You went through 6 last week as a bit of a bogey pick in the last 5 or 6 years.
I have. And what was it? So 6 and 18?
Yep.
So you get Fisher and Mitch Georgiades, or you get Ben King and Xavier Dersma over Lukosius.
Wait, say that again.
So you either get Lukosius in 2018, or you get Ben King and Xavier Dersma, or you get...
It's a good game.
Noah Anderson...
Oh, that one.
And you get Fisher and Mitch Georgiades.
I just want Noah.
Yeah.
So Noah versus...
It's a good game, mate.
I think in the other
Do you
one...
reckon they play this game?
I think you take Ben King and Dersma.
Yeah, but then in the other one...
it's a good game.
You just don't know.
It's a good game.
It's fucking hard. It's fucking hard.
Hey, the Saints have got 7 and 8.
This is cool.
Bit of pressure on the Saints.
Yeah, Saints. I might actually have to just go to the iPad for a second. Who did I put to them? Okay, so I wanted to actually ask you, Mick, about this, because you... played under Ross.
Yes, I did.
I also am his friend. He speaks a lot about Ross, so I'd probably know as well.
He likes a big-bodied midfield. Fife, yourself,
Barlow,
Mundy, Barlow.
Nick Subban.
Nick Subban.
Clancy Pearce off the half.
In the white
shorts. Who's a tagger? Crowley.
He was big.
You're all about 190.
Yeah.
Lockie Neal, the exception.
They just used to get us on the outside a bit, the opposition.
Mundy 190.
Yeah, Mundy's 190.
So the Saints already have Philippou running through there this year. Is that big-bodied mid? Yeah, Steele. They're probably the two that are the mainstays that are going to be there for the next few years. So then I think
Darcy Wilson.
He's a winger.
More wing, more outside.
Probably not inside.
Marking player, good player. Cool. So I think they're going to take one of those big-bodied mids. Yeah. I think if Smiley falls, doesn't go to the Ds, they'll take him.
Yeah.
And then the next one is Harvey Langford, who I think I talked about when I sort of went through those bigger-bodied mids, like the slower guy, the marking player.
Got to be able to run, so that's why I would say Smiley, probably not as much. I would go Langford first, if that's where that landed. So I reckon Ross loves his runners. You've got to be able to cover ground.
Yeah. So Smiley, not a great endurance base, but has the higher end speed. Langford, the opposite, essentially.
Which is he's very similar to Jack Steele.
Is it possible they just take both of them? They got 7 and 8. Just if they want to build the mid, pick two of the same type of player.
I thought their second player, if they... So there is another option for the Saints that they trade one of those two picks for the Giants 15 and 16, which would move the Giants into the top 10 to take a mid, because all of those mids are sort of based in there. Yeah. And they've just lost Perryman, Peatling.
How crazy is this? The last time there was picked 7 and 8 by one team, Fremantle, in the 2019. So 5 years ago, it was 1 and 2 and from Gold Coast, so the same as what Richmond have.
Was that Sarong?
Potentially have. And it was Hayden Young and Caleb Sarong at 7-8. Which is a
great.
Massive draft. That's huge.
Yeah. That's enormous.
Hindsight suggests that that's two pretty damn good picks.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
they had 3.
They turned into two mids.
They had 3. 7, 8 and 9. Liam Henry, 9.
That's a good picture.
So they had Hayden Young, Caleb Sarong and Liam Henry.
I mean, he's obviously left, but he's a great player.
Yeah. Jeez, this is a bloody good draft.
Which one's that?
This is a 2019.
Oh, yeah, super draft.
After that was Tom Green, Sam Flanders, Cozzy Pickett, Will Day.
Jeez. Yeah, Will Day was like 13, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Halfback flanker.
Brett's boy.
Yeah, we look after Big Wilsey.
Yeah, we love him.
And you've got Toby Travalia as well.
Yeah.
Who's a Will Day clone.
It is, yeah.
Where's he going? Let's not jump. Let's stick to the. Yeah. Where do you think? Just quickly.
Where do I think?
Yeah.
Anywhere like around the 10 to 15 mark, somewhere in there. I reckon.
Okay. Agree.
Cool.
The second pick with the Saints there. So I've got the first pick, a big-bodied mid, one of those guys, and then I reckon it's a toss-up between that sort of more forward of centre, creative type player. So I think you've got Murphy Reid. Kicks a lot of goals from the midfield. Like, he's great. He's probably the best 360-degree handballer in this draft, where he can just fire handballs out all over the place, release players.
A little bit of Lachie Neale.
A little bit of Lachie Neale. A little bit of Sheasel about him. Just, again, plays pretty slow. Just heaps of time on the ball, like a Pendlebury. That sort of...
Aesthetically very pleasing to watch this kid.
Nice.
Yes. Kicks it really well. The Sheasel light kick. Good. Going one way. I'm not sure about going back the other way.
The old defensive.
Not tell me any mids that are.
I was going to say none of these guys have showed.
Don't throw stones in glass houses, mate.
I was a tagger for 12 months.
When was that?
2009.
Oh, Cameron Ling.
Not Cameron Ling. I wasn't. Nah.
So that's pick 7 and 8.
That's pick 7 and 8. So Murphy Reid, I reckon he's in the mix. The other one is Taj Houghton.
Okay. Coming off a knee.
ACL.
Yep. Yes.
Son of.
Yep.
Trent.
Yep.
Yeah, brother of Ollie.
Yeah.
Who's there at the Saints as well.
The Saints as well. So I think he's in the mix. I sort of project Taj Houghton as something like a Shea Bolton type, Isaac Rankin sort of player with his athleticism.
Elusive.
Very elusive.
Will Ashcroft has done some great things for blokes that have had ACL injuries to come back after a year and do that. Like, he's the ultimate professional from what we've heard, but I think that'll help Taj debunk anything if there was worries about an ACL.
Do you think that that's something that's improving in the AFL, like with the coming back from an injury like that?
Yeah,
players are doing better now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the two there. So he did his knee. He played 3 games, but he was prolific, 29 disposals, 9 score involvements a game, 1.7 goals across those games that he played. So yeah, I think that's a good pick.
My only concern on him is his kick. I think he does some amazing stuff in terms of athletically, but I just watched him a couple of times early and it was a little bit...
Technique?
Yeah, just a little bit wonky in front of goal and whatever else, but geez, he can improve that.
Yeah, he's very creative. So that would be the options for 7 and 8 with the Saints, and then you go to Melbourne, who I said the key position player in Trainer.
Yeah. Last one to round out the top 10 is...
Richmond, who...
Richmond.
We can probably also, we can do 10, because they've got 10 and 11.
Yeah. Okay, do those two, yeah.
So I think here, they're basically funneling anything that's slipped through.
Yeah.
As far as talent goes. So I think, again, those big-bodied mids, a Langford, that they've been pretty hot on Langford too. They ran him through the VFL program. They've tried to get a lot of these guys through there, actually. So Langford there at 10, and then I think at 11, you probably, where they might start to sniff around the key position players, I think a Harry Armstrong comes into contention there. Like I said, he's a Cadman-looking type player.
Yeah.
He's only 193, so he's a little bit smaller. Doesn't get up the ground that much. He plays pretty deep, but he's got elite field kicking and range on his kick, a big left footer.
Reminds me of Chris Tarrant, the way he plays this kid.
Yes. Great shout.
Taz. Fremantle or Collingwood the
Collingwood,
first time?
early Collingwood.
Early
Taz.
Collingwood. Not Collingwood when he came back.
Same
He's not a full back.
No, okay.
He's got a little bit of the hunch.
Has he got the triceps?
Yeah, well, he hasn't quite got on the grinder and the battle ropes just yet, but
You'll get him.
we'll get him on the Pendles' program and see whether we can.
Elite.
He's one that hasn't been super consistent, Harry Armstrong, but he's
Had a good chance.
He had a really good chance, and he steps up in big moments. Like when you need a goal, you need a big contested mark. He's sort of been the guy.
So cool. I think we will skip going through the whole top 10, but because we've got some more questions.
Just first round.
The 11, 12 to 20.
Just give us the names.
But just to read you out, I'll show you what else you can potentially get in there. So from 12 down in 2019 was Cozzy Pickett, Will Day, Miles Bergman, Cody Waitman, Cooper Stevens, Brodie Kemp, Mitch Georgiades, Sam De Koning, and Sam Philp. So there's about a 50% hit rate there.
Really? A bit more than that, I reckon.
70? 68%?
Waitman. I heard Waitman.
Yeah, he's good. And then from 2018 draft, the 11 to 20 was Jai Caldwell, Zach Butters, Isaac Quainer, Jackson Haitley, Jordan Clark, Ned McHenry, Sam Sturt, Xavier Dersma, Liam Stocker, Riley Collier Dawkins.
Yeah, so that would be about 30% that one. But Jai Caldwell's ended up playing some okay footy. Zach Butters is a star. He's one of my favourite players to watch.
Yeah. It's exciting, really exciting to see what can happen in that pick. Who's it a big draft for? Like, who do you think? I think Collingwood don't have many in the. I know Moff's a Collingwood supporter, just to get him excited. They don't have many picks at all coming through.
Their first pick's like 56 or something. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
You just keep hearing, even radio this morning, it was like Collingwood are all about just bringing the all the mature age players in.
They're in for now
and trying to win it now. Just to interject really quickly, can I ask, being a big fan of the state leagues on this podcast,
I had this mix.
State league players, how many will get drafted? In your opinion,
There was a bit like Brett. He doesn't rate the state leaguers. It's more.
He goes to the phone, crosses the arms.
Yeah,
the two I'll throw out. Riley Bice,
Werribee,
and Sam Davidson from Richmond VFL.
So yeah, Sam Davidson's definitely on the radar. I think he's probably of the state league players the most likely. As far as I haven't seen a lot of Werribee play this season, so I'm sort of more covering the Coates League and the under 18 comps, but both of those two are in the mix. Particularly, I think Davidson the most likely, and maybe that's just the age.
Does he have a club link? Because he was at Richmond.
Yeah, he's playing Richmond VFL.
I don't think they're going to take him with their pick.
No, they've got all
What's their last one? 24.
No.
Don't reckon he's getting in there. But
you don't reckon, Brett? You reckon a bit condescending towards Sam?
He doesn't like anyone that's done it. Not from pick one. Maybe pick three talks too. Besides that, he's not interested in any of it.
I reckon Davidson's somewhere from 50 to 65, in that range.
Maybe
and there's some really good players who got taken around then as well. For confidence out there, anyone, I was pick 62.
A lot of good players. But
why did someone bag you and say you were a first rounder who played less than 50? They haven't done their research.
They didn't do their research.
Also, a lot of players that have done diddly squat.
Well, Lockie Neal was pick 61.
Yeah.
I was 62.
You were father-son though, weren't you?
But it wasn't the bidding back. Oh, sorry, it was the bidding. They could have bidded, but no one did. No one did it. You find that funny, bro? Did you?
I did.
Yeah. No one was bidding.
It was probably because of your fringe.
Someone bidded on because Tom Mitchell was the same draft.
Yep.
And I think Fremantle bidded on him.
So they didn't want to bid again.
And then they were like, it was a flip of the coin out of me and Tom Mitchell apparently. And then Jed Buse was at Geelong. He actually ended up going as well. He had a very good career.
Yeah. Still going.
Dare say, I thought back then I would have probably had a better one than Jed, but he's
still playing.
He's still playing. He's doing a great job. So congrats to him. It's a long race, life. It's fucking hard to stay consistent the whole time.
There's another one in the VFL, Liam McMahon, who's a chance at the Blues. He won their BNF this year, kicked the most goals in the VFL, I think. So
keep forward. I like this.
Been on Collingwood's list already, so second chance.
I love these guys that key position come in. I think he lasted 2 years, and probably skinny and raw, trying to figure it out. Goes back, plays state league, kicks a swag of goals, builds his body, builds a bit of resilience. Yeah, and should get another opportunity from all reports.
I have so much respect for guys that either get an opportunity or don't. Go back, play VFL for a couple of years. There's a big hit to the ego. I don't care what anyone says. If you've been on an AFL list, you get delisted and you want to rock back up and go, I want to get back there. It takes a lot of character to grit your teeth for 1 to 2 to 3 years and get back on an AFL list.
Also to not cash in and go to the state leagues and just country leagues.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I really respect it. I know on a lesser extent, my good mate Nick Holman. again, he's not, very good player.
It's a really good example.
But he did it the hard way.
Yeah.
He was on Carlton's list for 2 years, went back
To Central?
Do you know where he's from?
2 or 3.
Yeah,
He's
I know.
from Kyabram.
He is.
Yeah. His brother I think, just signed back there.
Yeah,
playing
he
for
went to
Kyabram.
Moama for a year and
Yeah,
come
dog.
back.
Nick played in the GVFL Premiership for Kyabram.
Did he? I don't know.
Was that okay? We
It must have been between.
Was that when I think it might,
No,
he might have been
was-
under 18.
Yeah, he was under 18.
So, yeah, okay.
But
I
big
was wondering
Kai
if he-
boy.
The one that comes to my mind with that is like same hometown as me, Brody Mychek.
Yep.
Like he just went
He's a
to.
Max Sports client too.
Yeah.
Big checkers.
Ah, right. So yeah, he could have done the same thing, like just gone and got money, I guess, but you know, toiled away in the VFL.
Yeah.
Port Melbourne. So yeah.
Yeah, love it.
He's trying. I'm just
Billy
getting a call off Campbell Brown, who's trying to recruit me to the Kabaddi team.
Oh my god, are you kidding? Is it actually Kamadi team?
Yeah, there's murmurings of a Kabaddi. You know the game
Kabaddi. Yeah, him and Milne and Schneider and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, that looks.
What is it?
Answer the call.
Kabaddi?
on live.
I don't know what it is.
Remember
it's
that
like
thing they played? It
It's
was
the
like
second biggest game in India.
the
Apparently,
British Bulldog thing.
It's
Wasn't
like a game of British Bulldogs.
Do you not remember they went and played it?
I
Like
was-
Schneider and
No.
Brownie and.
I don't.
You don't?
Nah.
You want to come play Kabaddi?
No thanks. No. Tackling wasn't my strong suit.
No. To finish up, I'm really enjoying this. I don't even want to finish up.
Where's
but I know
Toby
there's
going?
some
Just
time.
for my peace of mind.
I've got Toby going to the West Coast Eagles at pick 12.
Ooh.
A few frequent fly points for you,
I
Brett.
might have to go over and visit the great
Yeah,
man.
that'd be good. Brett, get with Virgin, get a couple points,
Yeah.
then go to Bali with the kids.
Could.
Jermaine Jones over there.
Yeah.
Don't talk shit about.
Oh, well,
Jermaine
you come
Jones.
over and have a little chat with Jermaine. What about Sammy Marshall? Where's he getting bid on in your
I've got him on my rankings at 22.
22? Yeah.
I haven't actually I haven't gone that far with the bids,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I think he's around that range.
Yeah.
Like there's a group of mids like Xavier Lindsay, Cooper Hines.
Yeah.
He's in that sort of mix.
Yeah.
Give us a couple of your little favourites that are sort of bolters, smokies, a little bit deeper that you just go, look, 5 years' time when we're back here doing the draft and we go,
Yeah.
who snuck through?
It's really hard to not put too many of your own biases on these things too.
That's what this show's about, mate.
Yeah.
You do whatever you like.
A player that I really like, and I coined him the Prince of Preston, Northern Knights boy, Jesse Detoli. I just love the way that he plays. Like we talked about Reid before, Murphy Reid being that real creative, just plays really slow, slows the game down. I think Detoli's got a few of those traits and can kick like over 50 metres on both feet.
I've watched him a few times for Carey this year. He can play. He's got some tricks.
Yeah, 100%. Like a real kind of like cerebral type that hits the scoreboard from the midfield. So I think he's one like from an athletic standpoint that maybe like could struggle a little bit at AFL level because he doesn't have he's quite short, doesn't have a lot of
Powerfully
athleticism.
built though. Like
He's powerfully built.
He's strong lower half.
Yeah, 100%. Like difficult to tackle. I just sort of love that type of player. And even though I've probably got him rated about around that 20 mark, I think I could see him being a really good player and a bit of a steal. And he's a bit of a draft bolter too.
Yeah.
Second half.
Give me your are we wrapping up?
Mate,
Or?
Brett, if you're happy, I'm happy. So, as long as you like.
Carlton have committed to the Campo twins.
Yeah.
Where do you have them rated in the
This
draft?
is tough. Like every time you do any sort of rankings, like Carlton fans start hitting you up like, Camperelli guys are better than that. I think they're good. Like as far as being able to find the footy, no, they don't have any problems. Like they work really hard. Ben's more of that sort of inside guy, and Lucas more a little bit plays more on the wing.
Yep.
Both really good at like moving the footy. Got a penetration, pick up the ball deep, and can carry it. But probably the one thing that bumps them down is the kicking. I would say not great by foot. Just in my opinion.
And speed.
Because Campo was a beauty.
Yeah, he was
wasn't he?
Well, he took all kickouts. I used to love. Pretended to be him
kick
on
to himself.
Yeah.
So they wear the socks up.
Yeah, I think so.
Like Dad.
I think so. I'm just trying to think now.
Lucas may have gone in and out with the socks up. Lucas is more like Scott in terms of build.
Yeah.
But Ben's a bit bigger, stronger inside.
Yeah.
So there's one that's a bit higher ranked than the
Ben.
other one. Ben's the
Ben won the medal for best on ground at the grand final game last year.
Right.
Yeah.
Had a heap of the footy.
He always gets heaps of the footy.
Yeah, there's no
awesome.
issues in that, but the question is the kick and the speed. So it'll be
I'm sure they'll
Spot
work
on.
that out.
And I've got Ben around 35.
Yeah.
And Lucas sort of north of 50.
And that's a point situation around
Yes.
them, like just whoever bids, then it goes.
Whoever bids, they'll match.
One more question from me.
Yeah.
If we fast
Keep
forward
going.
to Brett, we're good.
sweet, mate.
One more. The next year's draft. Who's number one right now?
What,
Ooh, I like this.
before we do that, because I just want to wrap up on this draft.
But he was ready to go with this one.
Go that one.
All right. I don't. Okay, so there's a key position tall, Archie Ludovic, Sandringham Dragons. He's that a little bit similar to what we talked about with Cadman. Probably more Cadman-like than Harry Armstrong. Like the big, like long arms, big sort of booming left foot kick. He's in the mix. The one that I love is Zeke Uland.
Oh, yeah.
From the Gold Coast.
Is that Bodie's brother?
Brother. Like, he's just wicked, like, the way that he plays. Like, he's real small, kicks the footy like Errol Goulden. But he's, like, he's a bit more, like, solidly built. Like, he's a bit more nuggety. And he plays through the midfield. Like, he played in that grand final morning. I don't know if you guys caught that, the Futures game.
No, we had a breakfast on.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, he was dominant in that. Just love the way that he plays. Like, I think Bodie's a good player too. Like, Zeke's got a lot more tricks, but... Yeah.
Good question.
Gold Coast is stacked for the future.
I was just going through before just my game that I play around some smokies of 5 to 4 years ago. In the 2019, the big one obviously is Chad Warner at 39. Could we get another Chad Warner at 39? Who knows? This seems like the draft that potentially could happen.
39. And then who?
39. Before it was Essendon had Nick Bryan, Kitty Coleman.
It's quite fickle though, isn't it? So you get Chad Warner at 39, then you get Jay Rantel, who's no longer on the list at 40.
Yeah, it's tough.
So for every Chad Warner,
Francis Evans, obviously still playing,
still floating around.
In 2018, a big pick here, and this is where you can get good role players. Connor Iden was picked 61.
Wow.
The Giants picked him up at
big seeker.
Yeah, Lockie Schultz was picked 57 from Williamstown. So a good little player there. And then Premiership ruckman Darcy.
He was rookied, wasn't he? Schultz first up.
I reckon you might be right. Yeah.
He was rookied from and then delisted.
So he was
I think
drafted,
delisted,
re-rookied.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got you. Interesting. Yeah, really interesting.
Give us a smoky then for this year's draft.
I'll give you a smoky.
Give me the next Chad Warner, and it has to be right.
No, it's just a smoky.
I'll try to give you Chad Warner. I reckon a really interesting player is Floyd Burmeister. He's probably ranked like GWV Rebel, key position player, 199. He's played mostly ruck this season, but he's a bit undersized.
He reminds me of Reece Stanley in the way he moves and runs around.
Yeah, and he's an ex-high jumper. So massive amount of athleticism, and he's got huge work rate, like good speed, all those sorts of things. And he's just kind of, I guess, like finding himself. But he's had a good back end to the season, helped GWV to that grand final appearance. And I think he's one that could, he's got a lot of AFL attributes at least. The next Chad Warner, that's a little bit harder. I'll give you one more. South Australian player, a bit of a Toby Travalia similar player, like a Will Day.
Oh, please hope you say this kid that I hope you're going to say.
Angus Clark?
He's one of my boys.
Is he?
I love Clark. Yeah,
do you take all of those types?
Yeah, no, I like competitors, man. I like good kids.
Really competitive. Really competitive. Similar build to like a Will Day, how he started South Australian. They look a bit similar.
Mount Gambier boy, so he travels 4 hours to Glenelg to play. Travel 4 hours home.
Where's it? What's the tick? The character. The character. Tick. Travels.
A little bit on this kid too.
Will travel.
So from a little small farming area, Tantanoola, outside of Mount Gambier, but to help fund the fuel bill, cuts his own wood, sells it.
Here we go. Take him, pick one.
Does he aerate the lawn with his aeration boots?
Yeah, the paddocks are with Dad. He's out there behind the tractor.
30,000 hectares. He's just aerating every pre-season. Good on him. No,
he's a ripper, mate.
That's the stuff you need.
Yeah, I loved his national championships. Like he's not at the moment. Like he's not getting a lot of the footy.
Yeah,
but it's really noticeable, I reckon, when he does.
No,
I actually missed his name. What was
Angus Clark. A lot of clubs love him.
Do they?
And their interviews with him, he's just a lovable farmer kid off the farm.
From
Tantanoola. It's a little farming region just outside of Mount Gambier.
Where do you see him going? Because my latest rankings, I had him about 35.
Yeah, maybe just in from that.
Just in.
Maybe.
It's exciting, bro.
I like it.
Would you give anyone out there that you think is that unpredicted of being picked up that they wouldn't even have a manager yet that we signed with Max Sports? Who would we tee them up with?
I think it'd be rare.
It'd be rare. I mean, the one that's like a real late bolter into the draft picture is probably Sam Toner from Dandenong. I assume he's got a manager though.
Potentially.
Yeah.
We'll edit this out and we'll go call him later.
I can find out pretty quick.
We might have to go to some like rural footy games to get that.
Yeah. But there's not one like the Lawson Humphreys from last year who did have a manager but then was out of the system and then re-signed with someone else, I think.
It's exciting, boys.
I'm keen.
I feel like that
was cool.
Yeah, I feel like I'm quite educated heading into this year's draft, which is good. I really like going back on history as well, we've done today.
Oh, you like your game?
Look, you've been great, but I'm saying my game, without that, I think it lacks the depth of an episode.
You need the context.
You need the context. No, I'm joking, mate. Incredible stuff. So much research done in. Where can everyone find you to watch more draft content? The YouTube page is going awesome.
Yeah, YouTube's sort of the main game. Dylan Alexander follows draft.
Yep.
Really creative name there.
Hey, there's no leave no stone unturned in the title. They work out what to do. It's just. And what does he do? I follows the draft.
I didn't see that coming.
You should throw a Russian twist in there as well.
Yeah. And oligarchs.
When you start doing this stuff though, you're kind of not thinking big picture a lot of the time. You just sort of like start something. You're like, that'll do.
Yeah. Mate, it's Dyl and Friends. So I've got two blokes I fucking hate. So it's sort of hard to
exactly
work it out. You know.
Yeah. So Instagram's the same though, but yeah, YouTube's sort of the main game. That longer form content.
Yeah. What have you got coming up content-wise? Are you going to be doing anything else sort of heading in?
Yeah, so the main thing kind of working on at the moment is just like consolidating like where I've got everybody.
Yeah.
So sort of dropping some rankings at the moment. I'll look to drop some sort of a phantom in the lead up to the draft and pretty much just look at some of the narratives, like the stories that are sort of travelling around the draft and try to get my take on that as well. Yeah.
Very cool.
Good stuff, mate. Awesome. Really appreciate your time today. And we'll have the link in the show notes, guys. But if you don't, head over to Dylan Alexander on YouTube, follows draft, that is, and Instagram and everything we'll have in there. But no, we can't thank you enough for your time. A few of these videos are popping off at the moment. I can tell the Carlton supporters are going hard at
Carlton love it at the moment.
Pick 3 decision. But no, really appreciate your time.
Thanks, mate.
I'd actually go to say I haven't seen Brett this excited for an episode and respectful of a guest.
It's been remarkable.
Ever. Yeah. So I was really worried today how it was going to go, and I think you guys are now friends.
We've broed down.
Yeah. Good stuff. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks.